Hey everyone, welcome to TSP Weekly. This is your tech startup podcast for Thursday, November 27th, 2014. Today we are recording once again in the Communitech Hub in Kitchener. We are in the Hyde room. I think this is the room we're usually in when we record at Communitech.
Yep.
Got the Star Wars graffiti going on. We've got a nice big screen TV here that we're making use of for the first time. So I think we're moving
We're all about
forward.
technology.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. My name is Darren Conley. I'm a local tech entrepreneur here in Kitchener-Waterloo. And with me is my always amazing co-host, fellow tech entrepreneur, Stephen Campbell. How are you today, Stephen?
Fantastic. Thanks, Darren, for asking. Happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans out there.
Right. To our hordes of American listeners.
Yes. I was busy brining a turkey last night.
Really?
Are you a briner?
I've never brined a thing in my life that I know of.
I don't know if brinded is a word, but it's we soaked the turkey for 8 to 12 hours in salty water.
Right.
And she's going in the oven at about 2 o'clock today. So.
Oh, do you guys do the American Thanksgiving?
I have an American wife and 2 American children, so yes, absolutely. There will
Did you do Canadian Thanksgiving too, though?
I'm allowed to do do that. I'm Canadian, so I get the best of both worlds.
So you're collecting
double
twice.
Thanksgiving. Yep.
If you're going to have 2 of anything, you better have 2 doses of thankfulness, I think, is great,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
And turkey.
And so I'm looking forward to that. I'd like to apologize in advance for my Larry McDonald mustache.
I was about to say, is this a Movember mustache, or is this
kind of. I'm not really doing any donating for cancer, although when it gets colder in Canada, I often grow a beard.
Sure.
But I have some interviews coming up for my co-op position.
So you thought you'd grow a mustache? Oh,
and
okay.
So this is like the weekend before those interviews. I actually have one tomorrow at 9, so this will be gone tonight.
I was about to say.
But
yeah,
so I'll be clean shaven tomorrow, so I'm just having some fun.
Right.
But I don't know if it's Larry McDonald or Fu Manchu. But,
wow. I'm not allowed to do the experimental facial hair. I just would not. It wouldn't pass.
Yeah, I'm a student,
with my
so
wife.
I get to.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, listen, let's introduce our guest. We've covered double turkey and mustaches. Joining us today is Kat Code, the founder of Binary Tattoo. Wonderful to have you with us. How are you today, Kat?
I am very well. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. We were talking before we started recording just about how your name is like C Code, and you've been doing development work for many years. And
I did. I'm C Code and I write C Code.
I think that's really, really cool. And it's only in this day and age that it would have that kind of relevance. If you had been born 50 years ago or something, then it would be you're just Kat Code.
It would have been boring.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Kat, you're with Binary Tattoo, which I love that name too. So the marketing potential with your name and your company and everything is just dripping with opportunities, I think.
Yeah, and
Very
we're going to talk a little bit more about the details of what Binary Tattoo is later, but maybe you can just give us a quick glimpse, a quick kind of...
The teaser?
The 1-minute teaser of what Binary Tattoo is all about.
The tease. Mm-hmm. All right, so Binary Tattoo helps to empower people with the knowledge of how to define their online identity.
Okay.
Which is my one-line thing. And basically, every single time you go online and you post, if it's a picture or a comment, or even if you're liking something, you're adding to this permanent collection of data, like a tattoo.
Excellent. I was about to say, it has nothing to do with markings on your body, but it's that permanence factor.
It's the permanence. And the binary, because everything is stored in binary.
Sure.
But I do a lot of presentations, and I teach a lot of people about how to do that. And I often tell them, what do you think of when you think of a tattoo? And they say, you can remove it, but like a binary tattoo, it's really expensive and it's very, very painful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a binary tattoo.
Oh, you do?
So I am the girl with the binary tattoo. Yeah.
Like,
you're that girl.
You have a tattoo of like a 1 and a 0 or something?
I have several 1s and several 0s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And what does your tattoo translate into?
It is the very
ASCII?
geeky ASCII version of the initials of my husband and my 2 daughters.
Oh, that's very
it's
cool.
not for fluffin'. Or what was that? Remember from the podcast or the
Steve is making a very obscure reference to the startup.
One character was.
What's the name of the TV show
translating,
again?
With the Pied Piper now. It's
Pied Piper. It was the hexadecimal. He said he could speak hexadecimal. Yeah,
so funny.
100 kerfluffen and 5 or something. Yeah,
translated into nonsense.
Anyway. Let's talk about some tech news. How about that? How's that for a segue?
Absolutely. Very smooth.
The first thing we wanted to talk about is an app. I guess it's like an online service slash app called Vite.in. I guess they're kind of they're taking Invite and kind of flipping the parts around. I've heard it, a lot of times when people are coming up with new names for things, they kind of make up a new word. I guess now we've resorted to taking the pieces of the words and rearranging them. But hey, if it works, great. Youbetme is an online app that allows you to schedule meetings easily and quickly without having to deal with long email chains. And I know even when we're booking guests for the podcast, we tend to have kind of 8 or 9 back and forths, usually to get times and dates and everything set up. So I can understand kind of the pain point they're addressing here. My understanding of it, according to the article here, is it's just a matter of kind of logging onto their interface, picking the people that you want to come to whatever the meeting is or whatever the event is, giving it a name, and then it connects to your Google Calendar. And apparently you need to be making use of Google Calendar if you want to be a creator of an event using Youbetme.
Correct. At this time, and it looked like they were going to be adding other calendar partners.
Sure.
But at this time, it was really Google that they were.
Google is the main one they're making use of. Yep. And then it sends an email to all your invitees. It displays kind of the available options. And apparently, the really kind of cool value item that they're adding here is that you can see your calendar kind of overlaid with the other people's Google calendars, so you can see where the open slots are for potential meeting times. You don't have to kind of pick a bunch of dates and guess at what might work for people. So it sounds like a potentially good tool. I haven't used it yet,
Right.
but I have in the past made use of other similar tools. There's one called Doodle. Have you guys ever used this one? Or you seen it online? Yeah.
No.
Kat's seen it before. So similar kind of thing. You can invite a bunch of people, send them an email. You pick a bunch of times. Now it doesn't show me what their Google Calendar availability is, or necessarily make use of mine. I think you can do that with Doodle with a paid subscription, but the free version doesn't allow you to do that. I didn't see anything in my information and digging through what Youbetme is all about. As far as payment plans, I think it's all just free at the moment. And if it's not, they haven't told us otherwise.
Gathering users. Are you a Google Calendar user already?
I am now. Like at some point, I think I was just using whatever was in my phone, like Samsung Calendar or something when I first got my phone. But we ran into so many situations between my wife and I where it's especially because she kind of plans all of our social calendar, right? And she would be constantly asking me, like, do you have anything going on this night or that night or whatever? So we resorted to using like a shared Google Calendar because it made it that much easier. We can both edit it, and not worry about stepping on each other's toes with making plans, which is great. Now, Kat, you had mentioned to us that you had built a calendar app or a scheduling app of some sort in the past yourself, right?
I did. Yeah. In 2001, I was part of the calendar team for BlackBerry. So I wrote the original Java and C code. I did C code calendar.
Awesome.
So yeah, I think it's a great idea what they're trying to do. And I remember at the time we were working with Outlook and Lotus Notes and trying to create a calendar that's agnostic to all other platforms. Really challenging.
I believe it.
So yeah, so I admire what they're trying to do and trying to get it to work on all the devices. It's really cool. The privacy part of me is looking at this going, though, you'd have to opt in to share your own calendar.
Right.
Even in terms of when you're busy and when you're not.
Or I wonder if it could have some, once again, I haven't tried out their feature, their interface, but if it could just kind of show you the blocks that are blocked off, but not necessarily tell you what the other people are doing in those blocks. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're busy, you just don't know
why.
What they're actually doing, to add a little bit of layer of privacy to it.
But even that, if you know where somebody is still a layer of privacy that, if you pass somebody in the hall and you wait a minute, you were supposed to be blocked. You're gray blocked right now. I thought you weren't available, or, so there's just... I
suppose.
Yeah, I see a privacy issue there.
I mean, it's a corporate thing too. If you've worked in corporate with Outlook, that feature already exists. Like when you're trying to book within a large company, you already have these blocks where you can tell if someone's busy, but you can't tell what they're doing. And I always found it funny when there were little blocks on a Saturday at 8 a.m. And I wonder what that person's doing today.
That's a good question.
But yeah, no, I agree. Like to me, I don't know if I'd want someone to see when all my blocks were, even if it didn't have the.
Or your boss says you only have 6 blocks this week. Why don't you have 12 blocks? Or whatever. I don't know.
What are you doing here?
Sure. I guess that's true. I think too, and I don't know if this is something you guys ran into in the BlackBerry days dealing with scheduling apps, but everyone kind of already has some sort of workflow that they follow when they're making plans, whether that's dealing just with emails or they have a notebook or something on their phone, some other specialized app. Everybody is doing something already to address this problem, whether it's a good way of doing it or not.
Right. And everybody has their own system.
Yeah,
that's right. And I think it's often very difficult to get people to shift to a new system. Like, it has to be something that's either so perfectly intuitive and eliminates all barriers that you'd be stupid not to use it, or you're going to have a hard time getting people to change whatever their routine is. If you are in a company already making use of an Outlook system or something like that, then where's the incentive to switch to something like this?
When I first looked at this, I wrote down, my note was, really? Is this a value? Because for me, and I think for yourself as well, Darren, as I've known you, this is kind of a strength of yours. So if you take Kat, for example, if we had this set up, we wouldn't have had the opportunity, and I didn't really participate in the email thread that you guys had about booking this podcast, but it gave you guys the opportunity to chat back and forth, get a sense for each other, and have some touch points on this meeting today.
Sure.
And if we had just simply booked a block and left it at that, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to have that back and forth. And it was 6 or 7, but it gave us a sense of each other a little bit.
So you're saying there's a social value to having a less efficient booking process.
Yes. And I think our skill set, like you were just saying, our skill set, you and I are similar in our skill set, that we have developed a skill set that is strong in that respect. So that we're able to communicate with people effectively and book things, and we've had a lot of success with that with the podcast. So for me, it almost adds another layer of, I know I have to book a guest, but now I have to go on to this other software platform and make an event and all this kind of stuff when we've not had to do that much work to do it before, right?
Sure.
And yes, the emails do get to 6 or 7 or 10 sometimes, and we have a cancellation, but to do all that work to get, it's almost like project management software.
Right.
You have to put all this effort into the management of your project management software, where you're like, why don't I just do something instead of, well, it's like you're the Sims doing your Sim dishes. You're like, I have real dishes to do right now. What am I doing?
That's true.
So for me, I think that's a strength for me. So I don't know that this is a tool that, like you say, it would have to morph for my particular calendar and booking things. I still use a wall calendar. I have 2 nails driven into the drywall beside my office, and I pull it down and write on it.
Right.
So that's my system.
Crazy
Caveman.
Early 20th century, caveman. Right.
So although I use the Google Calendar for occasional bookings, that's not where my life is. It's still on paper on my wall.
I find this is going to make me sound like the laziest person in the world, but even just using the Google Calendar to input the information, a lot of times, like, I'll make plans and I'll be like, I should put this in my calendar, but I don't feel like opening my phone, opening the app, going to the thing, setting the times, writing a description. Like,
there's too much friction.
I'll wait till the end of the week and I'll just input everything in there, and then half the time I forget and miss an appointment.
But that's what this is offering to do, right? I think a lot of this is you one click and it just puts it right into your calendar for you.
Yes, that's the main, I think, value add with what they're doing, right? For sure. The other thing I was going to mention was. And the other thing has slipped my mind.
I have my other note here is that the UX and UI is so vital here to reduce the friction, because I just dread having to, like you said, get into all that event creation and describe your event, and it's
I do remember what I was going to say. I think if we had, if we had busier, crazier schedules to deal with, I think maybe the value of this would jump out more. Maybe, my life is not incredibly complicated yet,
right?
But I could see if I was in the middle of a crazy startup when managing a team of 50 people and having to meet with investors and clients and everything else, then, you want something to make life easier.
That's called an administrative assistant.
Well, yeah. I dream one day of having administrative assistants. But in the meantime, here we go. Well, let's move on, guys. The next app we want to talk about here, something called Gift Connect. And it's something that this concept has come up in the past, I think, but maybe being executed a little bit differently here. So it's taking the idea of advertising and shifting away from offering just an ad or even a coupon or a discount to offering a free gift as the advertisement. So the company is essentially sending out free gifts to people through their mobile devices, and often it looks like it's kind of a cross promotional thing. So they'll have a sports team that wants to offer free pizza to their fans, or a celebrity or a brand or an organization that's working through a retailer maybe to offer something for free, a product or food service or something, right? And apparently it seems to be going somewhere. They've already raised $1.7 million in a previous raising, and this one I thought they had raised a little more than that.
I found it interesting that they've been doing this.
$5.1 million in the latest in their latest fundraise. So
that's a lot of gifts.
Yeah, and so they're getting some sort of traction that seems to be going somewhere. I like the idea of giving a gift rather than just interrupting me with a pop-up ad or a coupon for something that I might not care less about getting. But
right.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
It looks like they've gotten to this spot from pivoting. So they started with discounting, and I found it interesting that as you would think you would figure out at the beginning, celebrities aren't excited about discounting their product.
Right.
And that's not the market. Like, you're going to buy the Ralph Lauren polo shirt because it's a Ralph Lauren polo shirt, not because it's at 10% off. So they're kind of in the wrong marketing mindset there. So they pivoted out of the discount brand into the, what do they call it? Giftizing?
Sure.
I think was the word they used.
Yeah, I think they made up a new word that was something like that. Yes, that's right.
So, and I really like the concept of it. It's real free pizza. Here's $10 of pizza. It's not buy $10, get $10.
Yeah.
And it's not here's $10 of pizza for only $8.
Right.
It's just here's $10 of free pizza. Yeah. So I think it's a longer play for a Pizza Hut brand, but I think it will eventually, help solidify the brand and bring them some likes.
It's a cool idea, but if I was on their sales team trying to set up these promotions, I feel like I would have a hard time selling the businesses on, we're all about giving our users stuff for free. Yep. So give us a bunch of your stuff for free. You really have to demonstrate some value for the businesses that are offering these promotions, I think, to convince them to start handing things out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
As opposed to offering a discount. I mean, discounts are usually based on some kind of profit margin where they're still, within their margin even after the discounted amount, or they can work the numbers somehow. But giving out something for free, I mean, maybe you're trying to get more brand loyalty from people,
Again,
is that worth $10 in pizza?
It's still celebrity endorsement. I mean, the example they had where the Philadelphia Flyers were giving out pizza. I mean, then you're going to want the pizza because the Philadelphia Flyers had it. Sure. But I found it interesting. It's not its own network, as far as I understood. Right, they're leveraging other social networks and existing social networks, and then gifting through the Philadelphia Flyers Facebook page or through Twitter.
Yeah, people who are fans of whatever or following a particular brand and so forth. Yeah.
So this particular company would just be a behind the scenes marketing.
Right. There is this concept, I think, of how, the old way of advertising and how that has to change because it's so inefficient, the old style. Right. And was it in this article it was talking about, I don't know if it was in this one or if it was I think it was another one I was reading online recently, just about, when they send out those mass mailings of flyers, and I get so many pizza flyers, talking about pizza here every week, it's something like a 0.8% response rate. Less than 1% of that advertising sees any sort of response whatsoever. And in this day and age, I mean, we have the capacity to leverage social networks, to leverage likes, to leverage being fans of things, to target people, right? And to deliver advertising that people actually want to see rather than advertising that's interrupting. I think the reason people hate commercials is because you're interrupting content I want to show me stuff that I don't want.
Right.
But if you interrupt me to show me stuff that I actually do want, then it's not an annoyance. Suddenly it's a convenience. Suddenly you're giving me, I like pizza. You're giving me free pizza. My life is better now. It's not like you're interrupting me to tell me about, a really good vacuum cleaner, and I already have a vacuum cleaner I'm very happy with, and I have no interest in seeing it.
Yeah, it's a deep ocean when you start to talk about all that, right? Because when you get into the online presence and what the news companies are doing now to give you news that you want. Right. There's some funny comedians on that are talking about, well, that's not news. Like, news is stuff that you don't know about.
You don't know.
So if you want to know about the 49ers football all the time, every day, and that's your news, well, that's not really news because that's something you're already interested in, right? So news is supposed to be something that you're not aware of. But so that in a marketing standpoint, like if I'm, it's Christmas time and my son has a birthday at the same time, so I looked at one scooter online, and I've made my decision on that. I'm ready to move past, but Facebook is not ready to let me move past scooters.
You're getting all kinds of scooter ads now, right? Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to look up, paint Nerf guns. Yeah. I'm going to have to look at Nerf guns for the next 6 months online.
That happened to me just this week with knives. Simply because my wife is looking for a really good kind of chopping knife. The one we had before we've lost somehow. I don't know how we've lost it, but there's a knife out there that used to be ours that we no longer have. Yep. And so I looked up some Henkel's knives one day.
Ooh,
and
those
now,
are nice ones, German.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now all the time on my Facebook feed and stuff, I'm getting knife stuff coming up. Yeah. But, having said that, I think there is some maybe like metadata too that you can tap into to say like people who search for knives, that demographic that could be interested in that product has an 85% chance of also being interested in, I don't know, water heaters or whatever. But there's we have enough data on people now that we can start to make those connections. And I think even start targeting outside of the specific search term, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
If I'm looking for children's clothes online, then in this particular size, then there's a good assumption that I have a child that's this age, and they can advertise other things for children at that age to me, if that makes sense, right? Yep. So,
but I would be interested in a $10 Henkel knife sharpener.
Yeah,
as a
there
gift,
you go.
As a straight gift to me. When you said Henkel, I know Henkel, and that's a brand that has some strength for me. Yeah. And if I knew that they were giving something out, I'd be online or I'd be going through some friction as a user to get in line for that. So I think there is some value there as I put on my customer hat and hear you. You know, if we dangle a $10 Henkel thing out there, whatever that is, then
So Gift Connect people, if you're listening,
that has value.
You need some Henkel sharpeners as part of your product promotion. Just for Steve here.
Das ist gut.
Kat, could you see yourself gaining value through
what do you want
a service
for a
like
gift?
this?
What do I want for a gift? That's a hard one. I don't know, but I do know there's a lot in endorsement by people right? And there's all these studies now. That came clear to me because I liked a friend's company who sold natural cosmetics. And I hadn't actually tried her cosmetics yet, but I just liked it on Facebook. Yeah. And then a couple of days later, a girlfriend emailed me and said, hey, I ordered these cosmetics because you said you liked them. Yeah. And I trust your opinion. And I'm like, turns out they're actually really, really good.
Oh, that's good.
Phew. But I didn't know at the time. Sure. But that was like one of my aha moments where I suddenly realized how much a personal endorsement actually made a difference in what other people thought. Sure. So I could see this definitely working where if the Philadelphia Flyers are endorsing pizza, everyone's going to want to take advantage of that pizza.
Yep.
Sure.
I don't know how targeted this stuff is yet.
Well, and I think probably an endorsement from a hockey team might not have, I don't know, as I say, might not have the same power as an endorsement from a person you're a good friend with or a decent acquaintance from, but still.
Unless it's Oprah.
Yeah, and there are other startups actually who
That's true.
There are other startups that are leveraging personal endorsements as well. There was a guy I met here at Communitech, months ago who I wish I could remember the name of his startup because it would be good to have him on the podcast actually. But it was the kind of thing where you can endorse, lawyers and car mechanics and dentists and the kind of things that you want to go somewhere where somebody's recommended a hairdresser,
almost like a pumped up Angie's List. Yeah,
and then you would, if people went to that business because of your endorsement, then you would get some points, or somehow you develop a reputation as a reliable endorser of other products, and it was a neat idea.
I have that on my resume.
Oh, did you? You're a reliable endorser of other products.
Yeah.
It would be great if someone could twist this so that the stuff that you search for appears on someone else's computer. That like it would be great if my husband had the list of stuff I've been searching for, and then he would just know what I want. And
Although I could see some potential to get in trouble with stuff like that too. Like suddenly you find, no, I can't even make those jokes. You might not want to think like that's what my spouse has been looking up online.
That's true.
Really quickly, I was looking at gifts for myself. So I gave my wife one I found. It was one of those epic gift boxes where every month you get a mystery box in the mail.
Okay.
And it was, I don't know, $20 or something like that. So it was a geek-themed mystery box. So it had like video games, movies, zeitgeist, little
comic stuff,
comic book stuff, and just geeky stuff that you can't get anywhere else. T-shirts, stickers, stuffed animals, whatever, right?
Okay.
So I had said, here's something that you could, throw at me. $20 every month. I get to open a box of geeky stuff.
Yeah.
So I sent the email to her. So later on at night, I'm sitting on the bed, and she's looking at the email, and she's like, what is this? And she watches the video of them talking about how I'm so excited to open my box of geeky stuff. And I didn't watch the video. I just listened to it. And it was the most horrendous thing. I'm like, why did I want this again? And she started making fun of me. You want stickers? How old are you? And you want a video game doll to put on your... And I felt so bad. I was like, I guess that's probably not really what I want for Christmas.
Fair enough.
A mystery box of stickers and T-shirts for a 12-year-old. But it looked really good at the time when I was online downstairs. But when I talked to my wife about it,
drunk.
She berated me. She's like, are you kidding me? I was like, yes, I was kidding you. Thanks for catching
it. There you go.
So, yeah.
I wonder, you might be onto something with like spouses surfing online. Maybe there's a startup idea there somewhere where you can like, I don't know. There's something. There's a seed. I can sense a seed of it.
I'm going to go, we only need 10% for that idea instead of our usual 20.
We usually take 20% equity in any idea that we spark through the podcast, I think is how it works.
But
right?
I see a lot of legalities with that one, so we might only have to take 10 because
fair enough.
Fees.
Fair enough. No problem. Well, listen, let's move on to our third article we want to discuss today. A social betting app called Youbetme. They've raised $2.7 million so far. Essentially, this is an app that there's no money involved. You don't open an account. There's no currency changing hands. But
it's all about street cred.
Yes, for making friendly bets and with your friends, and it keeps track of how many bets each person has won and this sort of thing. They have a whole pile of sports data. If you're into betting on sports game stuff, then it will populate that data for you. And I'm assuming if you want to bet on other things or whatever, who's going to win the Monopoly game or something, then you can input your own. Your own odds and your own situation there and track it yourself. Not the first time I think we've seen, once again, an app in this vein of things. I think they're a little bit unique in that they're not touching money at all. Most people who want to get into the betting space are usually wanting to get involved in the money side of things and take a piece. But an interesting app, I thought, nonetheless. Now, we watched the kind of promo video for this thing before we started recording.
Yep.
And, the one thing that stuck out to me more than anything was just how male-centric, when I say male, I mean like men, how this is very targeted towards men. They talk about, betting on who can chug a beer the fastest and who can make out with the hot girl, and it's all very much like be the man by showing how good you are at winning bets.
And although they did say it's not monetized at all, they did have a part in the video where they said that they would be tracking how many bets you won and lost.
Right.
And if you paid, now I don't know that they were talking about actual money. It might be, okay, I won the bet, so you owe me 10 push-ups.
Right.
But there was some sort of thing where you could rate the person you bet on whether they followed through with the bet, I guess, is what it is. So you could bet on the side with money or put push-ups or
there could
whatever.
be money
right?
involved, but the money is not passing through the app itself.
Right? Yeah. So that was interesting to hear.
Yeah. So I don't know, Kat. What were your impressions when you looked at
Do
this
women
thing?
bet at all?
Well, that's
Is
a
that
good
why
question.
you're not a target market for these guys?
I don't
or-
even know. Like, I don't want to generalize if women bet or don't bet. I don't think they bet. Like, I'm thinking because I went through engineering. There were very few women, unfortunately, in engineering. But when I originally saw the app, I kind of went, oh my God, I could see some guys in high school and university who totally would have loved this.
Yep.
Sure.
And not for money, right? Just the silly bet stuff. But
But it was, you thought of guys.
I
First
did
of all,
think of
right?
guys.
So maybe it is a man.
I am so
type
turned
activity.
off by the video and the way they commoditized the woman as
Yeah.
a thing that
Oh,
you
yeah.
had to win, and like as a So tech is
Yeah.
death by 1,000 paper cuts for women, and
Yes.
it's just,
Yeah.
this is just another one. So now I hate to, like, and I'm not a spiteful person, but I would probably boycott this one out of spite.
Right.
And that's
There we go.
really interesting to me because from a marketing standpoint, they've obviously got something where, or I hope they would, where they're very clearly looking at a target market of men.
Right.
So, and as I'm watching the video, I'm thinking to myself, so you've completely ignored the women,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But if you piss them off, then they could be aggressive against this, right?
Right.
So by ignoring them, there's
It's-
no justice for them, right?
It's one
so
thing to
able
not make women your target market because not every app is. Some apps are very much tailored towards men or towards women or towards
You're not
specific
selling combs
groups.
to bald men,
yeah.
right? So
it's another thing to kind of offensively portray them in your marketing.
Yeah, so
right?
that's what I was thinking. So, and it's interesting to hear that. Yes, that's exactly
Just the men
reaction.
drinking beer, and even at the start of the video when they said it's a man's handshake, even that made me roll my eyes.
Yeah.
But
Right.
the who can make out with the woman first,
That's great.
that to me is a no.
Yes.
That is what's wrong with the world. Like, I used to be a big fan of the American Pie franchise
Yep.
Oh, right.
until the last movie where 40-year-old men were trying to acquire 18-year-old naked girls, and then I went, this is what we're teaching our next generation of people, and this app is adding to that problem.
Do you actually watched the American Pie movies all the way through to the latest
I
iteration?
hate to admit that.
I was just thinking. I think I saw the first one.
I think I just saw the first.
It
one
would be
too,
the
but
last
no,
one
it's
where
cool.
they were in their 30s.
Was
and
Kevin
then
Spacey still in it? No, he was 40 in the first one.
Was Kevin Spacey in it? No, you're thinking of
No.
American Beauty.
I am.
Yes.
No. American
Oh.
Pie with the teenagers that are
No.
trying to lose their virginity.
Yeah.
No, I
It
haven't
had.
seen that.
Because the first one was very male-female balanced.
Yes.
But by the last one, it was just about the guys.
Yeah. Fair enough. And once
Wasn't
again,
there a pie in American Beauty?
there might have been pie involved. I'm not sure.
There were roses. I don't know if there was
There you go. I wonder.
I really need to
I
go
wonder if
back
the
and-
American Pie franchise discovered through trial and error once again, like 85% of the people who are watching this are men.
Are men,
Maybe
yeah.
we should tailor the franchise towards them. But
But even
it's-
if you tailor it towards me, like I consider myself a feminist, and that's offensive to me. So
No,
tailor
right.
it to me, and I'm going to be boycottish
Yeah.
towards it too. Like I'm not sorry, guys, but I'm not really excited about that.
I think it's too bad because I think the idea, the core of the idea, is not a bad idea, right?
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
competitive, and I'd love to bet stuff about anything.
Yeah,
and having it open source or open world for me, so I can bet on anything other than the 49ers Seattle
Sure.
game tonight. Go 49ers.
There you go.
Would be appealing to me. But when you wrap it with blatant sexism, it's just
Well, and I'm not one of those guys that probably you would think of when you're like, this would be the perfect app for that guy who's making bets or whatever. But I think I could see contexts where I might want to have something like this. I'm actually thinking more I'd like to have an app that tracks like who paid for who when we went out for dinner and kind of just this idea of who owes whatever. Like maybe that's not important for some people to track, but I'd like to know if somebody else paid for me 3 times, I'd like to know it's my turn to kind of cover or whatever.
That would be a good
things
app.
Like this.
That app
And
I would use.
There might be one. I'm sure there are apps out there that do it too, but
the Dutch dating app or something, right?
something like that, maybe. But I was going to say about this group when we looked kind of like the team, who's on the team. It is all men. They're all kind of. They look under 40s, most of them under 30. So maybe it's they need to bring in at least some female presence into their planning group or their marketing group, simply to avoid the boycott factor in the way they're promoting their app.
Yeah, they're going to
because-
get a lot of hate if they go with that.
Yeah, it didn't look like a lot of diversity on the team.
Right.
No question.
Right.
A lot of young white men.
Right. There we go. And and I know a lot of people complain there aren't a lot of women working in tech in general or in social tech specifically. But I have met a lot of women working in the marketing space, at the very least, in the marketing space, and that's where they're not failing on the tech side, they're failing on the marketing side.
Right.
Yeah.
So get another voice in there to balance that out, I think. they'll go a lot further, hopefully. All right, guys. Well, now that we've kind of covered all that, let's talk with Kat here. Now, you've given us a teaser about binary tattoo. I think we understand the concept about having a permanent online presence, or a relatively permanent online presence, and how that's managed. So the first thing that came to my mind when you were talking about this is, now, is this, you're doing a lot of education. Is it a business, or is it a not-for-profit, or how do you fit into that sphere?
So last year I launched it as a service business.
Okay.
So I go mostly a lot of schools, some companies, parents and students I speak with, and some corporation. And I've also done some consulting for corporation.
Okay.
And then this summer I started towards launching an app. So that should be coming out next month.
Wow.
And
are you building it yourself?
Coded in C.
Coded in C. That would be awesome. No, right now I have help, but only because I am swamped.
Sure.
I did get a lot of people go, just write it yourself. I'm like, I can't do everything. Because what I really try and do is stay on top of all the latest news and the settings changes and all the terms and conditions changes, and keep people aware of what's going on in the world.
That sounds like fascinating work, by the way.
I actually really enjoy it, which is sick on my...
No, it's awesome if you like it. I'm just thinking, like, if I don't think I've ever read the full terms and conditions for Facebook or any of the other groups out there. So
yeah, no, and
on top of how they're changing it too. Like, wow.
I write weekly blogs, and I did one once on dating, because a lot of people discount online dating and the quantity of information they're giving away.
Right.
And I went through terms and services for online dating sites for like a whole day.
Wow.
It was fascinating, the amount of information they take from you and that they're allowed to reuse.
Interesting.
But they do that for everything. But it's a social network too.
I'm assuming this is on a bit of a tangent, I guess, but if you're on an online dating site and you post your profile picture, they have some sort of right to use your profile picture in their promotional materials, or
yeah, depending on which one it is and what the terms are.
Right.
The bigger worry with that actually is geotagging, which is a huge issue with kids, but adults too. I mean, people geotag their photos; they don't realize they stick them up on dating sites, and then they think they're anonymous, and they're not, because they know exactly where they live. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm guessing you have probably a lot of conversations around privacy, around how secure is my whatever.
Yeah.
Was there a lot that came up with this? There was that big breach in the news, the photos in the cloud that had been leaked, and all this kind of stuff.
So that, I mean, a lot of, especially kids, they use that as an example. I would like to believe that half those people didn't even know their photos were being synced. Like, there's automatic settings, and especially when you get a new update or a new iOS update, it won't even tell you that it's defaulted back to automatically syncing to your iCloud.
That drives me nuts about iOS, I have to say, by the way. Every time I run an update, they a lot of the settings default to something that I had changed in the past, and I have to go through them all again.
Yeah, and people don't realize that. And the other scary thing with that one is I'm a Reddit junkie. That's my poison.
Awesome.
But so 4chan was the original poster of that link, and then it came up on Reddit, and then I was seeing all the major news things were saying, oh, it was down. It took me 5 minutes to find it back on Reddit again.
Right.
And that's Reddit. So I'm sure, and places they're better hidden, and things that are underground, and they're everywhere. I'm sure you could find that. Yeah, the deep web. Yeah. I'm sure if you looked online for 20 minutes and you knew where you were looking, you could find it again.
Sure.
So it's permanent, right? It's everything's out there, and it's...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it didn't take 20 minutes.
I had a few people like, what do the pictures look like? I'm like, I opened them and I started looking, and I went, oh, I should not be looking at these. Like I felt so badly for invading these people's privacy. And I'm like, no, those are real people's pictures, and I don't care who they are. Yeah. They did not sign up for those pictures to be public. And I feel awful that they can be found. But
yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say, this goes back a little bit what you were saying about the online dating stuff. It just clicked in my mind. So I have a friend, one of my good friends I grew up with, who is at this very moment in Atlanta, Georgia, visiting a girl that he met online. Yep. And they'd never met in person, but they had this great connection on Facebook, and talk about privacy and things like this. Now they had prearranged this. It wasn't like he showed up in Atlanta one day as some crazy stalker. But in this day and age, it would not be a stretch for situations like that to happen, right? You bump into somebody on some social network. You can search by photos now using Google very easily. So if you have a picture of them posted, a profile pic, you can find them on all their other networks. You can find the one place where they let slip where they live, and I'm not trying to give tips to anybody who wants to go on stalking here.
I'm writing these down quickly as fast as I can.
Yeah, I troll people a lot. So it's really funny because actually when people come up through other avenues in my life, I tend to troll them just out of curiosity because I'm so curious how people have their settings set or not set.
Yeah.
And I often go through my niece is 16, so I like to go through her friends for fun. But yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad how much I know about people. And then the worst thing is that when I see them in public places, I have to pretend I don't know anything about them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I have to go introduce myself to them, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm so and so." And I'm like, "Yeah, I knew that. I knew your name. I know where you do this. I know your kids' names. I know how many you have."
Wow. I'm a little nervous now about how much you know about me.
I didn't troll you. I should have. I didn't. No,
you always have the opportunity after the podcast.
Your afternoon's free, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, this is something I actually have been very lackadaisical about managing my own online identity, and maybe we can get some tips from you here. But I haven't made any special effort to conceal the names of my children if I'm posting pictures of them or talking about them on Facebook or something like that. I have a blog that I've written extensively about my experiences in different areas of life or in work or whatever, and I don't bother changing names. Like this is no big invitation for people to steal my identity or something. I'll let you know right now, my identity is really not that worth stealing. I don't have a lot of money and I don't have a very exciting life, so there are, I think, a lot of other good potential targets. But having said that, part of me does wonder, like, is this going to come back and bite me one day? Like, if I do start the $1 billion startup and suddenly my personal life is something that people take an interest in, does it matter what kind of trail I've left in the past? Does that leave me open to potential exploitation?
Yeah,
or if you become a politician, and suddenly people can dig up stories from, I guess, depending how long you've been online, but crazy stuff from your past too, right?
I think we're lucky. Like, the real issue is the Gen Ys, because the Gen Ys grew up in these digital networks before they really understood them. Right? So their teenage years and their university years are online. Right. And I do get emails from people who are like, "Oh my God, I have to apply for a real job. Yeah. Can you please tell me what's out there?" Because I have no idea how to figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Tell you they want to know what about them.
Yeah. I've had that exact same thing.
Interesting.
Because you can't look at yourself from your own computer, kind of thing, right? Because it's all, you just log into your own home network. So if I go to Facebook, I have to go to Facebook from my wife's computer or something, right? From somebody else to see what I look like. If you want to see
exactly what their view, depending.
Facebook,
I don't want to look what I look like.
Yeah, so Facebook specifically has a little gear, and then if you pull down the gear, it says View As, and that actually will show you what your profile looks like, and people should do it.
Or something,
yes,
right?
And they should do it all the time, because it's the same thing. Like, every time they change a policy or whatever, they might default back to something else.
Right.
But the scarier stuff is every time you like something public, it gets noted by whatever public thing. Like, okay, so I have a public company on Facebook. I can tell you every single person that liked me. And then even if they take that away, I still have a record of it. And so
I liked you last night. It was late, but I did like you last night. I wanted to get it in before the podcast.
then like, so people discount that. So they like a whole bunch of stuff. They've forgotten about it. You know how many people like Gian Gameshi? And then I was actually watching the numbers fall down by the tens of thousands. Yeah. And then it kind of stopped. And I'm thinking, most of the people who like him probably forgot that they even liked him. Yeah. But if someone did the digging, they could find out that they liked him, and then some point in the future they could say, "Well, you like a sex offender. What does that say about you?" And
you voted yes for the Iraq War.
Yeah. So like, there's all sorts of stuff.
I love the headline. As I was leaving Max with my coffee this morning, I saw, I don't know even what paper it was, Globe and Mail maybe, and it was him being arrested, and it said, "What? No cuffs?" So I thought, oh, well, why would they have cuffs on him?
That's got to be like the
Sun. You just get him. He's not going to run. And then I thought, oh, that was very well done.
It's probably the Toronto Sun, because they always come up with some, like...
There was a double entendre there. Yes, I was like, oh, that was... It took me a second, but I got it. I was like, oh, yes, witty.
Dear me. So. Yeah, I had never thought about that. Like, things you might have liked in the past. How many people liked Bill Cosby or something, and then all this stuff comes out, and suddenly it can, be an issue.
Yeah, I need to do some more online research. I don't even know what Bill's done, but I know something's up.
Well, there's
with him, right?
accusations. It's another one of those accusations. But yeah, I mean, I think too of, well, first of all, these social networks didn't exist when I was in university and going through school. But if I was suddenly being tagged in all kinds of crazy party pics and then applied for, a job at a law firm or wherever, somewhere reputable where, they start doing some digging and find out all kinds of crazy, shenanigans I'd been involved in the past, Not that I have been involved with shenanigans.
Right.
I have to
Some,
keep
I
kind of coming back and stopping
disclaimers, eh?
my
Trying to hide,
self-incrimination.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We've had a couple friends of ours on the podcast, We the Internet, James and Cecily.
Yeah.
And there's a long-distance internet relationship that started, and they're now married and living in Canada together, American and a Canadian.
Yeah.
So I wonder, from their perspective, what they saw from looking at each other's profiles online as they started, right? And
Sure.
was that a concern? When I look at my stage in life right now, I'm not dating anymore.
No.
But I am looking at employment as I come out of this 3-year degree at Conestoga College. So I'm looking at my marketing myself digitally now. And what does my... as I'm an IT guy, so I don't have my own website or professional headshot for LinkedIn or so I often think about how much
how are you
marketing
coming
around
across?
and how you should present yourself and how you market yourself.
And you need a positive identity too, right? Especially when I teach younger kids too, I say, if you're even if you're applying for an internship, if someone looks you up and they find someone else online and you're not online, then that other person could get the job just because there's more information about them, right?
That's
there's endorsement
true.
around them and there's other things.
Yep, that's true. Okay, guys, we had to do a quick cut there. We had some, jackhammering or something going on in the building.
Yes, a new bathroom is now installed.
That's right. It sounded like it was right above our heads, so I didn't see any piece of the ceiling come down. I think we're safe to keep going here. But we were just talking about having an online presence, and I was mentioning I actually have a lot of kind of strangers come across my profile or show up on my radar on LinkedIn because it alerts you when somebody just looks at your page, not even when they send a request or anything. And I find a lot of times, somebody will pop up, so-and-so has viewed your profile. And if I go to their LinkedIn page and I see it's very minimally populated or sometimes there's next to nothing. There's just like one company and there's no description
right.
and it's a very obscure sounding company, then my first thought is this person's obviously a scam artist or there's some, crazy, something going on.
Nigerian prince.
Well, or they could just be someone who is, doesn't feel like taking the time to fill out all their LinkedIn profile and they're a very legitimate person. But like you said, I have this tendency to not want to attribute any sort of legitimacy to them unless they have a certain, what would you say?
Level of presence, right?
Yeah, online presence. And not just a LinkedIn profile, but I'd like to know, do they have a Twitter account or do they, have some sort of presence to say this person is not, a fake identity that's trying to scam me into something. They're a real person. They know me from somewhere, whatever it is, right? And I could see that if I was, I have interviewed people for co-op positions in the past. I haven't done the whole stalk out every aspect of them online, but I've done, a quick search through Google to see what comes up, to see if they have a Twitter feed and what kind of stuff they're posting, or if they have, Facebook, sometimes you can see stuff, sometimes you can't, but I'd like to get some idea of who they are. And, if you haven't tailored that to be acceptable to a potential employer, then I could see, it working against you in many cases, right?
Yeah, my friend has changed his Facebook name just for that purpose. He's sort of sold his business and just doesn't want the fact that he's whatever political association he has and religious association he has and whatever his beliefs are. Yeah. He doesn't want anybody to know that. So he's tried to become obscure on Facebook.
You reminded me too. I have a friend who I used to do a podcast with him actually back in the day, a much more popular podcast than this one.
Greetings and salutations.
That's right. Podcast. It was about movies and he was kind of the star of that podcast. He was like the funny guy. I'm sure the reason we had 15,000 downloads per episode for that podcast, and I think the reason we had so many was because he was just hilarious. And
he was gifting his humor, giftizing.
That's right. And at some point in the life of that podcast, and after I had stopped being involved, he had a major falling out with the host of that podcast, and he
did they have a Twitter war?
No, it was kept offline. No, it was kept offline, the actual incident or whatever that necessitated the break. Right. But he made a permanent split from this person as far as future involvement. and he changed his name. He has a completely fake name on Facebook now because he had so many people, like fans of the podcast, kind of saying like, "Oh, why aren't you working with so and so anymore? How come we want to hear you? What are you doing next?" And he just didn't want to deal with it. Does he have
a mustache or sunglasses, dark sunglasses? Right?
I think he's dressed as a Jedi in his profile picture with the hood over. So maybe he looks a bit like a Sith or something. Maybe that'll scare people away. But yeah, it was very much an issue of online identity and not wanting to be tracked down and hounded because of his past involvement in whatever, right? And
the paparazzi will still find him.
I'm surprised there aren't services out there, or maybe there are for, I need a new online identity because something got messed up with my old one. Oh, is there? Okay. Yeah. Well, there we go. Are they legit, or are they kind of shady business themselves?
They're a little shady.
Okay.
And there's also people who swear that they never create a real identity. There's I've seen several articles by people like, this is what I do. I create a Facebook profile. I use a different birthday here. I use a different birthday there. I've got 4 different email addresses.
They can never find me. They'll never figure
no one
it
can
out.
find them. And there's a woman that created, I wish I knew her name. There's a woman that created a truly anonymous network so that people could submit sources for news stories. And she wears sunglasses, and she has a very androgynous name. I can't remember her name, but she wears these huge sunglasses in every single video she's ever in, and every single picture, so that facial recognition software can't figure out who she is, because it very much is based on the depth of your eye socket and the definition of your eye shape, and so it can't figure it out. Yeah,
that's the major aspect of the facial recognition. Is just the
I
eye
can tell you about that, but no, that and your face, and when they do passport photos and they tell you not to smile, that's because it's also based on the way your jawline sits.
Right.
Interesting.
So if we're not telling people how to stalk. I'm not telling you how to get through customs either. But if you smile with a ridiculously big smile, then they can't find you in facial recognition.
Interesting.
Sunglasses and a huge smile.
Yeah,
will get you through anywhere.
I lived in Tampa Bay when Ybor City put in facial recognition software and cameras on the streets in this sort of nightclub bar area, and it was a big
thing.
Yeah.
And they were trying to find bad guys.
The don't smile in your passport picture thing, I discovered in traveling, doing a lot of traveling and living internationally, that's like pretty much a Canadian thing. Maybe in the US it's an issue too, but in many other countries, like they don't care.
Yeah, because they're building their database, right? Because North America's building their photographic database of who you are. And although in Canada we don't have it for Facebook, in other places outside EU and Canada doesn't have it. They will do, is this your friend? Is this your person? Is like, we don't have that, right? We don't have it where it automatically identifies
I think
people.
on our Facebook it'll bring up the face and ask you to tell
who it is. Yeah,
it won't guess at it for you,
they
right?
will suggest it.
Oh,
in other places, they will suggest it. And they went in somewhere, they've done all these experiments where they go into like a coffee shop and they take someone's picture and then they run it through like deep face, and it comes back and it says, this is who this person is.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a little freaky.
What the heck is Ron Jeremy doing at the Starbucks here in Kitchener?
I saw a TED Talk, and if I can find what it is, I can post a link to it with the podcast post here when we put it up. But it was all about hacking, and maybe this is a tiny bit of a tangent, but there was a group that was they were using some piece of software to take video footage of people in like buses and subways, public kind of areas, footage of people who are using their phones in these other places to try to figure out how easy it would be to decipher people's passwords just by capturing their usage on video. And what was interesting was they actually had a test subject standing in the midst of this crowd, and they were trying to get the test subject's password with a combination of video footage and maybe the sounds that it was making of how he was touching his phone or whatever. And they discovered that the software they were using to decode this was so accurate that it was grabbing the information for all the people in the background as well as the person who was using it. And they had such a high level of predictability in being able to decipher passwords and phone usage as far as what these people were doing on their phones, that even the kind of people the hazy people in the background, it could still figure out what apps they were using and everything without even seeing the screen, which is insane when we get into the privacy issues, right?
Creepy.
Anyway, I almost feel like in this day and age, like we've reached the point where it is virtually impossible, quote unquote, virtually impossible to be anonymous or to have full privacy. There's going to be some amount of I don't know, personal data that's going to be out there, especially if you want to take advantage of certain services. Usually what you are offer in exchange is your personal data.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes, though, I tell people because they don't realize, I mean, like, if you meet someone in person, you already deduce all this personal data about them you don't even think about, right? So you can look at me, you can probably guess approximately how old I am. I have an iron ring because I'm an engineer. I wear a wedding ring. You can probably guess I'm married. I drive a minivan. You could probably guess the ages of my kids by the types of car seats I have.
Yep,
like
glasses.
I have glasses. There's like 1,000 things you could probably guess about. You can hear my voice. You can probably guess I'm Canadian born. Like, and then when we go online, they're like, I don't want anyone to know anything about me. I'm like, do you know how much information you give away on a daily basis the minute you walk up to someone?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at, is like, I am expecting to be driving along and to have a police officer pull me over and say, you're about to run that red light, so here's your ticket.
Yeah.
Because they know so much about me. They know where I'm going to be and what I'm going to do. And so let's just get those tickets out of the way, because
predictive
will save people, right?
Analysis.
Yeah, they know so much about me. Like,
I was going to say, speaking of giving away personal data, an app, actually a group of apps that my wife and I have started to use lately are, I don't know if you guys have heard of Checkout 51, and there's a bunch of other apps like this where you take a photo of your grocery store receipt, and they'll have offers like, if you buy this particular product, or spend $10 on produce or whatever, then we'll give you $1 back or 25 cents back, and they credit to an account. But I'm not just, when I send them my receipt, I'm not just proving to them, yes, I really did buy Downy fabric softener this week. I'm sending them my entire buying habits for that, for every single receipt. And I'm getting $1 or $2, of value back from them. I'm getting a little bit of a discount, but they're getting a huge amount of personal data about my spending habits. And that's, of course, the value for that business. They're selling that data to groups that can use it for marketing purposes or whatever it is, connecting statistics. And I think that's where we are in this trade-off now, is if I want to get my $2 back for buying produce at Superstore this week, then I'm going to have to give up some of my privacy in my spending habits in order to do that. And so now people are having to weigh those options. How much is it worth it to be really, really private about how much I spent on cottage cheese in the past 2 months? Yeah. Or am I willing to let that be publicly known, because who cares?
Right. And in the grocery store, everybody can see you pick up the cottage cheese off the shelf and check it out, and the girl there knows you're buying cottage cheese. Yeah. So like Kat says, like, who cares?
You're already giving that information away.
That's there. So.
And wouldn't I prefer that? Like, if I always buy pasta with pasta sauce and they see that on everyone's bill, then maybe they'll move the pasta and the pasta sauce beside, well, they are those two. But, and then maybe they'll move those two things beside each other in the aisle, because everyone always buys them together.
Or say, hey, you forgot pasta sauce today? Oh, yeah, I did.
And what's actually, I think a lot of times what happens with these apps is, if they notice I'm always buying Ragu pasta sauce, then I'm going to end up getting an offer for some other brand of pasta sauce, saying like, you liked them, try out this one. And then, that brand gets a bump in their sales because they can get me to switch loyalties and so on and so forth.
The pasta sauce wars begin.
I think the only real concern is kids, or people who are very naive, because what happens is they end up giving away this data, and then people come back to them and they're like, oh, I'm your brother's friend, and you go to this school and you're part of this soccer team. And people are like, oh yeah, of course I know you, and then they get scammed in, or worse. But
So let's ask you then, and we got probably 5 or 10 minutes before we should wrap up. But just a little bit of advice then. We're talking about kids. I have young kids. They're not quite on social networks yet. Yeah. At some point they will be, though. Steve kids are involved in some extent in socializing online.
Not Facebooking or anything like that yet, but on the gaming networks, like the PlayStation Network, I guess.
What advice would you offer for parents of kids who are starting to get involved in socializing online, as far as do's and don'ts or things to be careful about?
10 minutes. Wow. So several things. So there is something called COPPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Okay. Digital stuff is obviously growing faster than we can control it. And so this was an attempt to legalize some of that. And basically COPPA says is that if you're over 18, you're an adult, and all these companies can use your information, like you're saying, any way you want.
Sure.
If you're between 13 and 18, they can use some of it, but they have to strip out your personal information before they do it. And if you're below 13, they kind of figured you didn't have the ability to control what you were doing online, and so you shouldn't even be there.
Right.
So COPPA has now put the 13 and older rules into all the social networks. And so I often ask kids, like most of the kids I talk to that are under 13 are on this stuff anyway.
Sure.
Well aware of that.
Can you say they put it into all the social networks? Is this a national or international kind of
It's
thing,
so international because the companies that we use here are American based, right? So Facebook, Google. So if you go to sign up for an email address, it asks you how old you are. You need to be 13 because Google requires you to be 13 for COPPA. Same thing if you go on YouTube or Google Plus.
But is it enforced all around the world or just in particular countries?
It's enforced if you use the product that's based in the States.
I see.
So if it's an American based company. So I had a girl actually approach me just this week who told me that she was getting Match.com emails and she's only 10 years old. And she didn't understand why. And I asked her who signed up for her email. Well, of course, it was her parents with their birth date. So according to COPPA, then that person is an adult and then she's allowed to receive that stuff.
Right. Gotcha.
The other issue is if you go on Facebook too early before you're 13, when your Facebook birthday is 18, same thing. They can expose you adult content and they can try and sell you things and use your information as if you were 18.
Gotcha.
So it's in that way, it's important that you be 13.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, there is very few places for these kids to go online.
Yeah.
So they're there anyway.
Interesting.
So that's one thing to understand is this COPPA thing. The biggest thing you can do from a cyberbullying perspective is not to threaten to take the thing away from your kid if there's a problem, because then they feel like they're being punished twice.
Right.
So if they come to you and they say, I'm being bullied on Facebook, many parents are going to say, great, you can't be on Facebook anymore.
Right.
Well, if that kid feels like there's any chance that's going to happen, then they will never tell you
Sure.
the incident has happened. Yeah. So that's lots of studies have said that the biggest thing you can tell your kids is that you appreciate the social, you appreciate why they're on there, and you will not take it away from them. You just want to help them resolve the issue.
Right. Okay.
And ask your kids what they're using.
Right.
A lot of kids are like, they use this thing called Omegle. Omegle is this, in my opinion, horrible thing where
I've never heard of it.
You can talk to random strangers via chat or video.
Oh, geez.
They intentionally set you up with random strangers.
Right.
And younger kids I talk to and I say, do you appreciate you don't know the person on the other side? And they're like, oh, it's okay because they're strangers, so I can tell them anything I want.
Backwards, sweetie.
No. So there is that weird notion that if they don't know the person on the other end, it's even better. So I advise all parents to ask their kids what they're doing, what they're using, and to explain it to them. Ask the kids to explain it to them.
And I think kids are smart. Like when they say that, I think they get the anonymity part. They're not, when they say I can say anything I want, they're not saying, I'm Steve and I live here and my bank account is this. What they're saying is, I think this or I feel this or maybe something about being gay or something. Like, so they're not saying who or where they are really, but they're able to express themselves because of that anonymity. I hope.
Right. You'd hope, but some of them do. They give away way too much personal information. It's actually
if
adults
you're nefarious and trying, you can very easily, with a 13 or under your child, get what you want out of them.
Yeah.
You don't need to get the exact address from somebody to be able to get enough information to track them down.
If I can get my 13-year-old to empty the dishwasher, he's in trouble online if he's talking to somebody else. Because that's not
if you can manipulate them into that,
it's not easy to do.
Fair enough. I was going to say then, just as we were looking to wrap up here, can I assume that there are some resources with Binary Tattoo for these kind of things?
Yeah, so I write weekly or biweekly blogs, so I write about all sorts of topics for parents and for adults and everything. I'm also, like I said, I'm rolling out my app soon, and what that's going to help you do is find your online identity and get help with it. So if you want to sign up or follow me on Twitter at Binary Tat, then I will let people know when that's available.
Okay.
And I do come to schools and companies and
Can people request those kind of bookings through your website as well? What was the web address?
BinaryTattoo.com.
Okay, perfect.
Or binary.tattoo.
And you actually have ink on you. You actually got a tattoo.
I actually do. I actually do have the binary tattoo.
So you have all the credibility. That's awesome.
Shoulder.
Yep.
On the back. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So now when people see me in the tank top, they'll be like, I know her.
Yes.
That's the girl with the binary tattoo.
Yep.
And then they can stalk you to your home. And
that's right. And they can figure out where I live. They can check out my Facebook profile.
Yeah, just QR code scan your shoulder.
Find me on LinkedIn.
I'm very interested to see if you do turn up anything interesting about Stephen or myself. If you feel like digging us up, then then let me know. I don't think I have anything bad out there, but I would be interested to see what a stranger finds about me.
Yeah, let me know if I'm going to run into red lights on the way home, too. I'm curious.
You can also do predictability on marriages, too, apparently, Facebook.
That'd be good. Yeah.
There you go. Wonderful.
I'm straight with mine. Maybe my 13-year-olds, I'm starting to worry about who he's going to marry.
I think we could talk a lot longer about this topic. I think this is such a huge topic and something that is of importance and interest to everybody who has an online presence. So we'll have to get you on another time in the future. We could dig a little more deeper. But for now, we should wrap things up. So let's say a quick thank you to Communitech for letting us hang out in their space and do some more recording here, and for stopping the construction long enough for us to finish the recording, which is great. We also want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us for another episode of TSP Weekly. Please send us your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your feedback. Our email address is feedback@tspweekly.com, or you can drop a comment on the website, which is tspweekly.com. So, from myself, Darren Conley, from my co-host, Stephen Campbell, and from our guest, Kat Code from Binary Tattoo, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you all next week.
Happy American Thanksgiving.